Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. Welcome back to our channel. It's a beautiful day today, and in this video I would like to talk about raised beds, their cons and pros. My husband and I discussed this topic and we've come up with 5 cons and 5 pros that we've faced during our gardening years. And we'll start with the pros. And the first positive, that's the most obvious with the raised beds, is that you can use really good soil. Like on this one, for example, we put a lot of peat moss, a lot of potting soil, a lot of compost, a lot of manure, and as a result you have this fluffy, nice soil, and we can raise anything in it. Root vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes, anything will grow well here. Where we live, we have heavy clay soil, so having fluffy soil is really nice when you want to garden, when you want to grow really good quality vegetables. The second benefit of having raised beds is that they have fewer weeds. You can see in this raised bed we have almost 0 weeds. We actually spread the manure last November and we're in February now, and this raised bed looks pretty good. It's ready to be planted into. Raised beds do get a few weeds here and there. Like here, for example, you can see this weed, but they're so easily to pull up and just throw away. Or this henbit, for example. I'm okay with henbit growing in our garden area as long as it's not grass, because grass can be aggressive, it's hard to get rid of. The third good thing about raised beds is you can control what type of soil you would like to put into your raised beds, if you want to make it acidic or alkaline. For example, we have a blueberry plant that we are growing in a container, but we can easily plant it in the raised bed. We can put the peat moss and other acidic medium to help it grow better, because blueberries like more acidic soil. And also we can put some soil acidifier, which is a type of fertilizer. Here in Texas, in the ground, we have alkaline soil, and blueberries do not like growing in our native soil. I tried to grow raspberries and 1 blueberry in the past in our native soil, and they did not do well. That is why raised beds can suit your specific needs better than the native soil. The fourth positive about raised beds is that they are up higher and you can tend to them way easier than if you had to work within ground bed. For example, I can simply sit down on the edge of this raised bed and I can plant my plants right there without having to squat or bend over real hard, which is hard on the back. And that's a very convenient thing about raised beds. The fifth benefit of having raised beds is that they're up higher and the walls around it protect your plants from different animals like rabbits or your dogs and different pests. And this way you don't have to worry about your plants as much. And now let's talk about the negatives of having raised beds. The first one is that they're hard to move. Be it cinder blocks like we have here or metal raised bed, it would be really hard. It would take a lot of time and effort to move the cinder blocks or the whole frame with the dirt and move it somewhere else if we decided to grow our plants in a different place. And this leads us to the second negative thing about raised beds. Whenever you put them under a tree, the whole raised bed gets so full of tree roots that it gets impossible to grow anything in this raised bed. I heard somewhere that it would be a good idea to put a raised bed under a tree because you can't really grow anything around the tree and close to it. And I thought, okay, I'll just put a raised bed here, and this raised bed turned into a big container for feeding our maple tree that's growing right here. Let me show you what it looks like now, and you can see all the roots from the tree. See all this stuff? It's really hard to pull it up. All this is tree roots, and nothing really grows well in this raised bed. So before you decide to set up your raised bed, make sure it's in a good location, because if it's not, then it will be really hard to move it to a different place. The third negative thing about using raised beds is that most of the material that raised beds are made of will eventually deteriorate. For example, this metal raised bed is rusting and it's actually breaking down on the bottom, and pretty soon we'll have to replace it. And the cinder blocks that we use to make our big raised bed, they eventually shift and they don't stay even, and the whole bed doesn't look very neat and pretty. The fourth negative about having a raised bed, especially a cinder block raised bed, is that the soil in it dries up real fast, and it requires a lot of rainfall and a lot of watering to soak the soil, and it's never really moist all the way to the bottom. Just recently we had a lot of rain, so right now the soil is nice and moist. But last summer, when we had extreme drought and extreme heat, The soil was very dry and I had to water it every single day. That is why this year I decided to set up the drip irrigation so that it will be doing all the watering in case we have a dry summer again. And the final negative about raised beds, and the biggest one for us, is the cost. By the time we bought cinder blocks and filled it up with all the soil, it took us quite a lot of money to do all that. So at this point of our gardening adventure, we decided not to build any more raised beds. We decided to work with our ground. Our ground is clay, but it's not that bad. And I'm getting this in-ground bed ready for the upcoming growing season. I spread some compost and manure. I need to still mix it with the ground, but so far we like working with in-ground beds and they work well for us. But we still like to use this big raised bed to grow our regular potatoes and sweet potatoes. Last year we had a really nice crop of them. But for everything else, we pretty much use our in-ground beds. That's all for today. We'd love to hear what kind of gardening you prefer doing. And we hope you enjoy this video, and we'll see you in our next one. Bye-bye.